Today we'll make a little bit challenging print when color calibrator doesn't really work and doesn't really help, and I will explain why, and we will make the full corrections with a test printer for this particular negative and try a little bit new stuff. So let's go to the darkroom.
My mama told me I should beware. I'll tell you a story about new people who take you south. Innocent girls, don't mean to scare you, but be careful. Maybe think twice before you walk alone. Call somebody to take you home. Look over your shoulder when you go that way. This world might take you to a bad place.
Today I have an interesting negative from my trip to Brno in Czech Republic. Actually, it was really good light, and for some reason for this negative, even for scans, I have a little bit strange and different color. So let's load it up and check how it looks on my enlarger for the first test prints. As I said before in the previous videos, I really like this approach with the anti-static GAN. It helps to remove all the dust, but unfortunately in my case, because I have a cat, it's almost impossible to remove the cat hairs. Usually if you wait long enough, they anyway go to the negatives. This picture was shot on 1.2 aperture and on 1/35 of a second, I think. It should be sharp, but the depth of field here for sure not the greatest. I actually literally arranged this shot in the coffee shop, so I take a chair, take a cup and symmetrically put it in a corner. So let's color analyze it and check if we can make an initial test print close enough to what I want to see as a final print. Because from the previous videos you already know I have not enough power of magnification on the magenta channel, so I will increase magenta channel again on 10 points, and let's make a test print and check what we have. So let's transfer 10 seconds from the color analyzer and make a test exposure. I'm still thinking about the buying of roll of paper, because Fuji paper itself, if it's cutted, it's almost impossible to find anything else than paper what I'm using. And as you can understand, it's not the best paper what you can use. First of all, for hand printing it's too thin, so you can easily bend it and ruin it. It's more for roll-to-roll devices to basically have a roll with a like 100 to 100 meters or something like this, and it's easier to transport and easier to put in a tool. But in our small case, it's not really practical, and the feeling of the paper itself not really great. So let's check my first test print, and it's already, as you can see from the wet one, it's far off from my optimal position. So anyway, let's quickly dry it and write down all the parameters for this print. But I already can see I need to make a correction in a Cyan channel, so because whole picture look a bit cyanish and kind of a blue. Maybe it's blue, maybe it's cyan. I'm still kind of confused if you don't have a good reference of colors. And why this negative actually looks so off, and the first reason is actually the general color palette on this print. First of all, it was shot in artificial light, so it makes this print a bit far off. And as you can understand, if you try to blend all the colors and make them gray on this picture, they never will be gray if you want to make a balance, because it's basically yellow and red only. So let's make a correction with the Cyan channel, and because at this print I'm not using the Cyan filter inserted in my enlarger, I need to pull down both filters for yellow and for magenta. So it's basically doing the same as you go down with the Cyan channel. So here I have a good range of color, and because I know this cup in the center of interest should be kind of a white, a little bit pale blue, something like this, I can use it as a reference color and try to calibrate on this color first. As I said before, I'm using two channels, so first channel is actually yellow channel and second channel is a magenta channel. So let's select the good one and transfer to my enlarger head, and from there let's make a second test print. I select this negative to make it easier to print, but unfortunately, as you can see here, it requires a lot of corrections and it's not so easy as you can think from the first glance. Because film is not really a stable process, as you can understand. It's really changing everything with the temperature, with the time, with the storage, with the development, with the printing, with the environment temperature and so on. You never get the same results with your prints or taking the picture in the same situation in the same place. And here I have a new type of defect which never occurs for me before. It actually happens because my film carrier is too clean and doesn't have any dust, so your film is literally touching the glass. And yes, it's anti-Newton glass, but nothing is perfect, and you can probably say it's, you know, safer from 99% of the time, but in 1% it's anyway creating the Newton ring. So the next step, let's try to correct this greenish tints on the floor, because it should be wooden color, and we need to change the magenta channel. And if you want to decrease the greens, it means you need to test print the magenta channel and lower it down. And as you can understand from this point, I have crazy difference between the yellow and magenta channel, which is really strange for me, and I'm not really understand why it's almost like 40 points between the two channels. Usually it can happen if you develop film not properly, or if you have a light conditions which is completely shift your color balance. For example, your white balance is completely off. And because film is quite sensitive to the white balance, because not a lot of latitude in color channels, so in principle it means you can underexpose horribly one of the channels, and you cannot pull it back like on digital photography. But in principle, even on digital, you have the same problem if your white balance is quite off. So I clean the negative once again, try to remove all the problems with the Newton rings, and let's write down all the parameters for magenta channel and select the perfect point for next test print. So if you work longer times in the darkroom, don't forget to take a breaks, otherwise you will lose your focus and you probably will create more problems than the solutions on your print. And in this case, your lab book is actually a crucial thing, so you can stop printing in one day and continue on the next day, and you have all your steps, and you can easily continue next day or next hours. And even hand-developed RA4 process is crazy stable, crazy repeatable. It doesn't really require extremely high precision and temperature, and especially in the timing, but it requires focus. And here we also again have a problem with the dust and problem with the Newton rings. Not sure why it happens in the same spots. Probably I will clean up the negative at the moment with a tissue. I don't really like to touch the emulsion. And if other measures doesn't really help with the cleaning, probably it's just one small dust spot creating air gap and creating Newton rings. So for the final print, I want to check these problems again and make exposure with the borders on the negative. I always want to show you how it works and how it looks. And in principle, if you print the negative like this, your borders or negative should be completely black. So it means they transparent to the light and transparent to the paper. So let's quickly wash it up the final prints with the borders and check if we have problems with the dust or Newton rings, and if it works finally without any problems. So what I meant, the borders will be completely black and you almost doesn't see any holes or sprockets from the film. It means your RA4 paper is actually completely unsensitive to the base layer of the colored film, and this is why you can use a safe light in a darkroom with a color photography. Because the frequency of the safe light, what you're using, is actually sodium discharge lamp in the past, and at the moment I'm using LED lamp. So this wavelength completely transparent to the paper, so it's completely not rendering on the final print. And this is why you don't see this strange yellowish cast on the paper, and you have a greater separation of the channels, and it solves a lot of problems. So your sprockets will be seen only on the black and white paper, because there it's just kind of a transparent ND filter, but it anyway depends on your black and white film. As a final print and final adjustment, I just increased magnification on the print, refocus it again, and print it without the borders and a little bit cropped, so it helps more to focus on the subject and create more solid print. And I really like the symmetry on this print, so it really helps with improving the composition and make it more solid from left to right and creates more movement in a shot. As you can see here, I remove almost all of the problem with the dust and with the Newton rings, and the print itself looks really balanced, and I really like the final result. So let's quickly go with my adjustments. The first adjustment, I make a test print and I go with the Cyan channel and select the optimal cyan balance and get this print. And from there I already can see I have a greenish tint, and I go with the magenta channel lower to create this bigger prints without the borders. I also like result here, it's less tidy, and I make one print more, which I not show in the video, and I just make off with the exposure. And I also try to make the final prints what we saw before with the tilt shift correction, but again I don't really see the huge difference, and for some reason when I tilt the print I have completely different color balance, which I cannot measure. So this print looks more yellowish, but you can see here the difference in the size of the leg and size of the square there. It's more squarish on the left print, but yes, I will keep it up with this final print. So thank you for watching and see you in the next videos.